Today on Movieology, film criticism. It's not for the faint of heart. What makes up the principles a film critic uses to define good film? For the second installment, we have my friend and movie critic Clark Douglas to tell us on this episode of Movieology. Movieology is brought to you by American Vision. Support us by shopping at AmericanVision.com and use the coupon code Hollywood at checkout to get 10% off all purchases. Welcome to Movieology, your ticket to engaging the spectacular world of film from the bedrock of biblical truth. I am your host, Joseph Darnell. We are joined again by my friend Clark Douglas. It's great to have you again.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Thank you. Clark is the host of WHIE Radio's The Sounds and Sights of Cinema, a program spotlighting both film music and reviews of the latest films. In addition, he writes reviews of DVDs, Blu-rays, and theatrical releases for DVDverdict.com. Last time we discussed what constitutes good professional secular film criticism. We're picking up again where we left off, but if you want to see the first part, click here. So Clark, tell us what makes a film above average. What gives a movie credibility in a critic's eyes?
Well, as I indicated in the first part of our conversation, what officially constitutes a satisfying cinematic experience remains something absolutely impossible to pin down, which is part of what makes film criticism so much fun. It's an opportunity to make your case for or against a film, to bring your own unique perspective to the table, and weave that perspective into the fabric of the general consensus. And as much as some might think we critics are simply naturally bossy individuals trying to tell everyone what to do, that's not the case. Critics, much as I hate to admit it, don't have that much influence over the movie-going public. The majority of moviegoers simply ignore us and go see what they want to see, no matter how much we might insist that Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen will melt their brains with its horribleness. To put it simply, most film critics do what they do because they love film and want to analyze it for the benefit of others who love film and the analysis of it.
Okay, so you're bringing up a very good question. Why don't moviegoers listen to critics more often? What are some of the challenges for critics to gain the respect of people to give a wit about what they have to say and what they think? It seems to me that at times critics are just hypercritical or too forgiving. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, let me begin by addressing the first part of your question. Why don't more moviegoers listen to critics? In general, I think the majority of moviegoers feel they have a perfectly solid grasp on their own taste and simply don't feel they need the opinions or thoughts of a so-called expert. For many viewers, a film's marketing campaign and word of mouth from friends are far more significant factors than critical analysis. The majority of viewers know what kind of films they'll respond to and prefer not to put an intense amount of thought into examining the films they see. Though there are exceptions to the rule, the films most likely to be impacted by reviews are the films geared at those thoughtful moviegoers who prefer to be intellectually stimulated and challenged by the movies they see. To be honest, that's because those most likely to pay attention to critics are those actually interested in the analysis of film. As for your other questions, the more negative elements of our writing may suggest that film critics are merely movie-hating cranks, but it genuinely is love for cinema which fuels the work of most film critics. We're in love with cinema because we realize what it has the power to achieve, and we want to see film reach its full potential as often as possible. When something genuinely worthy of praise comes along, we'll certainly furiously search our thesaurus for synonyms of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. But if that praise is to have any substance, we must also be willing to take the films which fall short to task, not out of some smug sense of superiority, but out of a desire to see the filmmakers in question make the alterations necessary to do better next time. Admittedly, some critics are worse than others about too frequently engaging in needless, attention-grabbing hyperbole.
So up to this point, we've addressed the big spectrum of things critics look for and the subjective quality that they have looking at films. So what makes the difference between one critic's points of view and another's? Why do you think that we should listen to what one critic thinks over another when the two of them are in disagreement about a film?
Perhaps most importantly, a critic must ensure that their particular case for or against a film is well presented, or it will be meaningless. Simply saying something is good or bad without explanation is poor film criticism, as is judging a film based on what you think it ought to be rather than what it is. That latter item in particular is a very easy trap to fall into. If you disagree with what a film is trying to say, you must at least make an effort to actually understand what it's trying to say, and debate it on those terms. Straw man arguments and cheap misrepresentation of another's efforts have no place in film criticism, or anywhere else for that matter, despite the fact that the world we live in is so defined by these elements that to imagine a world without them is nearly impossible.
And there are good forms of debate and logical arguments that should be made when evaluating film, but most moviegoers use petty opinionated cases or straw man arguments for their positions. Clark, wrapping up the discussion for today, what advice would you give our viewers if they're considering the critic profession for themselves?
If you're interested in pursuing a career as a film critic because you think it would be a splendid profession, you might want to think again. There aren't many full-time jobs for critics out there these days, and as time passes, more and more of these significant voices in film criticism are those who simply do it because they love it, despite the fact that they get paid very little or, more often, nothing at all. I do it because it's my personal passion, which is the only motivation I need, and that's a good thing because that's essentially the only motivation there is.
Clark, thanks again for joining us today and for the previous episode. These were just great insights, and we'll have you back again sometime soon.
Thank you very much for having me, Joe.
I wanted to have my friend Clark interviewed on Movieology to inform us on what it means to be a secular movie critic. Hopefully you have a better idea of what critics look for in films. Of course, Stu and I have a different point of view than most professional critics or other Christian reviewers. We strive to give you a worldview evaluation of movies' themes and aesthetics. Clark's take on aesthetics is the first time we've topically discussed aesthetics on Movieology, and we will look at good and bad art in more in-depth episodes to come. We're basically out of time for today, so I want to say thank you for watching. If you would add your thoughts on today's interview, I would be thrilled. Just leave us a comment. And before I wrap up, I want to let you know that we have made available a short video introducing Movieology to new viewers. You can find it at the link on the screen. This video is for you to share with your friends and family that you think would enjoy Movieology, so check out the link and share it with others to introduce them to the show. Remember to watch Movieology on our website, movieology.tv, the source for worldview discussions of all things film. You can subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and get our free e-newsletter by signing up on our site subscriptions page. I'm Joseph Darnell. Until next time, thank you for watching Movieology. It's not for the faint of heart. What makes up the principles of film critics use? I don't have my proper English in there.
We'll certainly furiously search our thesaurus for synonyms of...
We have the critic, dark colloquialists of straw man argument. And there are good forms of law. Here. Yay! Mm-hmm. Woohoo! Oh, great, and the chair just started to break.
Your chair?
Right.
Yeah.
The chairs that fall apart real bad.
Uh-oh.
This is the one.
Can it be
Set dresser
pin be
department,
put back
please
on?
give me another chair.